There are, in addition to the applicant and the Department of Public Service, there are several parties that are parties as a matter of law to a case. These are the Department of Environmental Conservation, the Department of Economic Development, the Department of State, the Department of Agriculture and Markets, and the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. All others must request intervenor status or party status. Parties have certain rights and responsibilities. They must comply with procedural rules and must comply with the directives of the judges. Parties have certain rights, and they are to engage in discovery, which is a formal fact-finding process. They can present expert testimony, participate in evidentiary hearings, file motions and legal briefs, and participate in settlement negotiations. Some cases have intervenor funds. This is a pool of funds provided by an applicant that are available to municipal and other parties to retain expert witnesses, hire lawyers, and otherwise contribute to an informed decision. The amount of funding is a function of the project's length, location, and voltage. A minimum voltage to qualify for intervenor funding is 125 kilovolts. Here, as a 115 kV line, there are no intervenor funds in this case. So far, the applicant has provided newspaper notice of publication prior to the application. That is, newspaper notices that alert the public that an application will be filed. The applicant filed the application on November 18th, 2022. After reviewing the application and finding deficiencies and having the applicant rectify those deficiencies, the Public Service Commission deemed the application complete on July 21st, 2023. The parties held a procedural conference with Judge Leary on August 9th, 2023, and settlement negotiation began August 30th, 2023. Today, we are at the public statement hearings so we can hear from the public any comments or concerns they may have about the project. An Article 7 can follow one of two tracks: litigation or settlement. Litigation is an adversarial and formal proceeding where the parties gather evidence and present their cases and ultimately have a judge and then the Public Service Commission decide the issues. This can be split into three phases. The first is the evidentiary phase, where the applicant files their direct case, which is the application and the testimony that accompanies that application. Other parties, including the Department of Public Service, present their direct cases, and then all parties can respond to each other's direct cases through rebuttal. Throughout this is discovery, which is a formal fact-finding process. This is followed by evidentiary hearings, which include cross-examination. Following this is the briefing phase, where parties submit briefs, which are formal legal documents that summarize the evidence and parties' arguments. Finally, there's the decision phase. The administrative law judge can issue a recommended decision, which recommends to the commission on how to decide, and parties can reply to this. Finally, the commission renders a decision. Parties, and only parties, can appeal a commission decision and must do so within 30 days of that decision. Settlement is the alternative to a litigated outcome. It is a more collaborative process focused on building consensus. The company will file their direct case, including their testimony, and then will notice settlement. The parties will gather and conduct settlement negotiations, where they work on the terms and conditions that they think the commission should accompany any certificate. This is summed up in a joint proposal. Following the joint proposal, there can be evidentiary hearings and site visits as needed. Instead of briefs, the parties will file statements in support or opposition to the joint proposal and can reply to that. And finally, this culminates in a Public Service Commission decision. Just like litigation, this can be viewed in three different phases: the evidentiary phase, which includes discovery and other fact finding; the briefing phase, where parties describe their arguments and summarize the evidence therefore; and finally, the decision phase. The ALJ may issue a recommended decision, and ultimately the commission will decide whether to accept, reject, or modify a joint proposal. Again, parties and only parties may appeal a commission decision and must do so within 30 days. To issue a certificate, the commission must make certain findings. These are the basis of the need for the facility, the nature of the probable environmental impacts, and that the facility minimizes environmental impacts on certain aspects of our environment, such as wetlands. The facility must have a minimum adverse impact on active farming operations. The commission must decide what parts, if any, of the facility shall be underground. The commission must determine whether the facility conforms to long-range electric plans, and the commission must determine the degree of conformance with state and local laws and regulations. Note here that the commission can waive substantive local laws and regulations that are too restrictive for a project. The most common ones waived are noise restrictions for construction or height requirements for structures. Ultimately, to issue a certificate, the commission must determine that the facility will serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity. The commission may deny an application, grant a certificate with appropriate conditions, or approve, reject, or modify a joint proposal, again with conditions. The certificate is only one step in constructing a facility. Following this, the developer will begin conducting surveys and right-of-way studies and eventually file an Environmental Management and Construction Plan, or an EM&CP. This is a detailed series of documents that indicate how the applicant intends to construct the line. The EM&CP is subject to both party and public comments, and thus it is available to the public. And like the certificate, the commission can approve with conditions, reject, or modify an EM&CP. Following EM&CP, approval of the EM&CP, the applicant, as necessary, will begin acquiring access and rights of way and will begin construction. Following construction, there will be restoration, drainage repairs, ongoing site monitoring, and the applicant will maintain its line and right-of-way according to a vegetation management plan. If you would like to review the application, you can follow the link here, dps.ny.gov. Select Commission Files and File Search in the top blue ribbon and input the case number 22T0654 into the search box. If you would like to comment on this application, you can do so today by making a statement at this public statement hearing. You can also write to the Public Service Commission at this address. When doing so, please reference case 22T0654 Lockport-Batavia. You can call the number below, and a member of the Department of Public Service will summarize your comments in writing and file them on DMM. Or you can go to DMM and select Post Comments in the upper right corner and write and submit the comments yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. So that's the process. I'm now going to turn to the company, Mr. Gentile, to ask him to provide additional information during this session about the project itself. Mr. Gentile, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am, Your Honor. Let me share my screen here.
Terrific. Thank you.
And share. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And my name is David Gentile, as Your Honor announced, and I am a project manager with National Grid. and I'm here to present to you our project to rebuild the Lockport-Batavia Line 112. First, a little history on the line. It dates way back in its origins to the year 1906, when construction began on transmission lines from Niagara Falls all the way eventually out to Syracuse, New York. At the time, these transmission lines were constructed with horse and buggy technology, as you can see in this illustration. And amazingly, these structures still exist on our Lockport-Batavia Line 112 today. Our Lockport-Batavia Line 112 was placed into service in the year 1907. Our project is going to be rebuilding approximately 21 of the 35 miles of the Lockport-Batavia Line 112. And that 21 miles is the 21 miles that has these steel tri-leg towers. So looking at this illustration here, up in the upper corner here where my cursor is, this is the further westernmost point of the project, the Lockport station in the city of Lockport. The line runs 35 miles from the city of Lockport to the city of Batavia, both into National Grid-owned substations. These 1907 vintage steel tri-leg towers and the original conductor on line 112 are located from the Lockport station to structure number 211, indicated by this black diamond here. Structure number 212 going east to Batavia. The line is built on wood poles. It's been inspected and found to be in acceptable asset condition and is not included in the scope of our project. We are focused on this section of the line between Lockport Station and structure 211. This section of the line is in very deteriorated condition, as you could imagine. We've had a lot of interruptions on this line dating back to 2013, and you can see these yellow dots along the line 112. These are all locations where we have had faults. Conductor drops, could be a tower failure, hardware failures, whatever. And all these faults have turned into interruptions on the line. So the need case is specifically for this section of the line with these steel tri-leg towers. A little bit more geography. Our line 112 rebuild project route runs through 4 municipalities. It begins in the city of Lockport, which is inside this dotted shape here, for a short amount, only 1/10 of a mile. It then runs about 5 miles through the town of Lockport, another 8 miles through the town of Royalton, and another 8 miles in the town of Alabama to structure 211. One of the more interesting aspects of this project and prominent features is the line 112 running through the Tonawanda Wildlife Management Area, which is in this location right here. This wildlife management area is managed by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And currently our line 112 runs straight in this diagonal line right here, this dark blue line. Our project is proposing to reroute the line 112 to this teal colored line, which is a more upland location, is actually less impactful to local habitat in the wildlife management area, and will allow for easier access to our structures for our crews to do restoration and maintenance. As you can probably gather by looking at this image, there's quite a bit of water in this area, especially in this Tonawanda Wildlife Management Area. And we have many structures along this route here that are in standing water, very difficult to get to. So that's why we want to reroute the line on this path. When completed, this reroute will measure about 2.5 miles in length compared to the 1.8 miles there today. So what will the new line 112 rebuild look like to members of the public? Using this illustration here, it's meant to show a before and after effect. The very light gray steel lattice tower is meant to depict the existing steel tri-leg towers. On average, these existing steel tri-leg towers are about 60 to 70 foot in height. We are proposing to install steel monopoles, galvanized steel, on average 70 to 85 foot tall. So we should see approximately a 15-foot taller structure than what's in place today. All of these steel tri-leg structures, in fact, all of the structures from this structure number 1-5 just outside the Lockport station fence line, all the way to structure 211 will be removed, and we will be replacing them with these steel monopole installations. The project route really remains unchanged. We're rebuilding within our existing right-of-way and on the current center line, except for the area in the reroute of the Tonawanda Wildlife Management Area, which I showed on the previous page. In fact, our new poles will be installed within 10 to 15 feet on the same line as the poles, existing lattice towers they are replacing. So it's not going to look very different than what's there today. Other than we'll be left with what we think are, cleaner, sleeker looking poles that don't have all this existing deteriorated steel lattice. So the visual impact should be minimal compared to what's there today. So for a transmission line rebuild of this magnitude, they can take several years depending on their length and their complexity. But all these transmission line rebuild projects go through 4 phases. And our project, the first phase will be site preparation. And that is the clearing of trees and brush to widen our right-of-way to our standard 100 foot for 115 kV transmission lines. This will allow our crews access to the lines to perform their work and bring it up to current day codes. To give you a perspective of how much tree clearing is involved in this project, we are not required in the application to give specifics other than just kind of show on our aerial photography where we intend to do it. So what I did was I just did a desktop analysis of our aerial imagery, and I measured about 14,000 linear feet of non-contiguous new tree cutting. The 21 miles of the project totals about 111,000 linear feet. So just over 10% of the project right-of-way will have some degree of tree clearing, which could range from 0, if there is no necessary, or up to 60 foot of tree clearing. Really, it depends on site-specific locations and, how much trees we had to remove to get up to our standard 100-foot width. The next phase of the project is environmental controls are installed. These controls are installed to mitigate the construction impacts our equipment can have on the landscape. Heavy equipment, tires, deep ruts, a lot of soil disturbance. So we install these timber mats along the right-of-way, which our vehicles drive along, and that really disperses the compression of the soil and minimizes the impacts. We also have to manage sediment control. So if there is, say, stormwater, we have to manage that the water flowing and make sure it doesn't leave the project right away. So we'll install silt mats, silt fencing. In some cases, if the terrain is steep enough to control water, we would install water bars to make sure water goes where we want it to go instead of where we don't want it to go in the project. The next phase, is the actual construction of the line. That's putting in the foundations, erecting the structures, running the new wire, and ultimately energizing the line. Then after the line is in service, there's still more work to do. There's restoration phase, and post-construction restoration typically includes the company returning land and contours to their existing grades as best we can. Revegetating disturbed areas to at least 80% vegetative cover, which is required of us by the DEC. We have crews monitor the project right away to ensure that invasive species standards are maintained. We want to make sure we don't bring any invasive species into the project right away or have them leave the project right away. And also there is a 2-year period of monitoring farm fields. You can imagine we lay these timber mats down on farm fields. It would kind of compress the soil. So we have to go in and break up that compaction to make the soil as farm ready as possible. And then we go through a period of monitoring that compaction by measuring it and doing what's needed to get the compaction as completely removed as possible. And also there may be some situations where we had to remove some topsoil from the farmland. In restoration, we would restore that topsoil to the farmland. So it's quite a process after the project is actually built. Also, the duration. So Mr. King talked about the environmental management and construction plan and how detailed that is. That comes, as he said, after the Article 7 application certification. It is approved by the New York State Public Service Commission, and when it's approved, we get a letter to proceed with our project. And typically, when we get that letter, it's within about 4 months that we start the construction of our project. A project of this size and length, we are expecting to take about 2 years to construct. So we are looking at an anticipated in-service date in the year 2027. Once the line is in service, it will bring several benefits. The first of which is it's always good to replace our aging infrastructure. This line is remarkably lasted as long as it has, but to take it down and bring a new line in with our current codes and modernized infrastructure will be most welcome, especially by our transmission line crews. There will be an increased electric transmission capability of the line. So what this means is our current day standards are to install a larger conductor that is there in place in the field right now. That'll allow us to move more electric current through that wire. So we can transmit more current along the rebuilt portion of the line 112 to better meet our area's current and future electric needs. It certainly is a cost-effective solution for the long term. We've been doing a lot of extra maintenance and work to keep this line upright for quite some time and to get us to the point where we are ready to rebuild it. So once these new poles and wire and hardware are all installed, we'll be able to return to a more regular spread out maintenance pattern on the line. The line 112 will continue to operate at the same 115 kV voltage. And anytime we can improve one link of the transmission network in Western New York, we improve the entire network out west. So our reliability of this line 112 will certainly improve once this project is in place. That'll be very welcomed. So we do have in place a website for the public to go to for information about this project, aptly named Lockport-Batavia Transmission.com. And this website has been communicated in all of our mailings and notices to landowners and abutters along this project. Website includes a lot of project information and updates, including this slide deck. You can use a tool on the website to enter your address and you can find your home in relation to the project to see where this project is in relation to your home or property you may own. Document library of all former prior mailings to the public about this project, and a frequently asked question page where our most common questions that we receive on projects are answered. In addition to the website, we have two other ways for the public to engage with the Lockport-Batavia Line 112 project team. The first is this, what we call the hotline, this 716 phone number. This number is manned by 3 members of our stakeholder management department. So we always have coverage in case anybody is away or changes positions or whatever. So a call comes into this number. A voicemail is left, immediately transcribed into an email. That email is then immediately sent to the 3 stakeholder managers. They decide, okay, is this a question we can answer? And if so, they try to do so the same business day. If it's a question that needs some help from a subject matter expert, they will first call the person who left the voicemail, acknowledge receipt, tell them we are working on giving you an answer and we should have it for you in short order. We also have an email link here, info@lockport-batavia-transmission.com, for people to submit questions, comments, or concerns about the project. So that concludes my summary of the project. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Gentile, and thank you, Mr. King, as well. Very informative. The purpose of today's hearing is to provide the public with the ability to tell the commission any thoughts it may have on the company's proposal, particularly those people who live in the project area. The statements made in this hearing become a part of the case record that will be considered by the commission. And as you know, we have a court reporter who is transcribing the hearing and will prepare a transcript which will be uploaded to the department's website. And again, it will be a part of the official record. I do not have any registered speakers, but I see that there are a number of attendees. So I'm going to ask if anyone is interested in providing a public comment at this time before we go any further. How you should notify me in response to that inquiry is to use the raised hand function, which you should see at the bottom of your screen, your WebEx screen. There's a little hand there. You can raise that. Thank you. Or if you are a call-in user, and I see there is one, you could press *3 on your phone, and that will alert me. That will actually raise a hand so that I can see you. So is anyone among the attendees interested in providing a public statement? Just press *3 if you're a call-in user, or use the raise hand function on your computer. Okay, seeing no one, and just for the record, we did not have any members of the public registering to speak. I do want to reiterate and stress that this is not the only opportunity to comment on the company's proposal. The notice that was issued by the secretary scheduling this meeting notes the other ways to comment. You can send by snail mail your comment to the secretary, who is Michelle Phillips. You can call our toll-free comment line, and those comments will be summarized and put into the record. Or you can go and submit a comment directly in the case by going onto the department's website. The instructions are there. Under commission files, you hit file search and then enter that key number, which is the case number 22T0654. And then there's a box that says post comments at the top of the page, and you can do that. So the notice sets a December 20th, 2023 deadline for receiving comments. That's a soft deadline. So comments will still be considered after that point in time, but it's certainly important for you to get them in as soon as you possibly can. This public statement hearing is now being live streamed on YouTube, but of course it'll be available afterwards. And people can certainly refer others to see what went on during the public statement hearing. thank you so much to everyone, particularly Mr. King and Mr. Gentile for the information sessions. Many thanks to our department's Office of Consumer Services, Mr. White, Ms. Kalis, Ms. Brown Anderson, and of course our court reporter, Mr. McLean. Good luck to you, sir. And with that, this hearing is concluded and we are off the record. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
We
Thank
are
you.
all set, Shauna, and thank you.
Good
Thank you.
evening, everyone.
Good night. Have a good evening, everyone.